When people talk about South Korea's rise, you usually hear the same old story. Park Chung-hee's 5-year plans, the chaebols, and the miracle on the Han River. Sure, that's true, but that's only the surface. If you stop there, you miss the real forces that made Korea different. Because South Korea's success is not just about policies or exports. It's about a state of mind, a culture of crisis, a military style of discipline, and the constant fear of being erased. Today, we'll take a different angle. We'll ask, why does Korea run faster than anyone else? The answer is not because it's richer or more resourceful, but because it always feels like it might not have a tomorrow. South Korea is small, squeezed between giants China, Japan, Russia, and overshadowed by the U.S. military presence. It has no oil, no iron, no natural safety net. This geography bred a collective survival anxiety. For Koreans, the idea was simple. If we don't move fast, we won't survive. Unlike resource-rich nations that could afford mistakes, Korea had no buffer. This constant insecurity created what sociologists call a crisis culture. Companies operated like they were at war. Families treated every exam as a life or death battle. Governments planned not for comfort, but for survival. On the surface, Korea's economy rose on exports and policies. But underneath, the real driver was this shared belief. If we don't fight today, we may not exist tomorrow. This fear wasn't weakness. It was the invisible engine that pushed Korea forward. If survival anxiety was Korea's engine, then the military mindset was its operating system. In 1961, Park Chung-hee seized power. He wasn't a typical politician. He was a soldier, and he ran the country the way a general runs his army. The nation became the army. Corporations became regiments. Citizens became soldiers. Economic development wasn't just a policy, it was a mission. 5-year plans weren't suggestions, they were battle orders. Export quotas weren't goals, they were command deadlines. And the chaebols? Companies like Samsung, Hyundai, and LG weren't simply private businesses. They were state-appointed officers, carrying out assigned missions. You will build steel. You will build ships. You will build cars. And you will not fail. Inside these corporations, hierarchy was absolute. Managers issued orders. Workers obeyed like enlisted men. In factories, discipline felt closer to boot camp than to a workplace. Many workers from the 1970s later recalled, "We weren't employees. We were soldiers in uniforms of grease and sweat." This system may sound harsh today, but it guaranteed one thing: execution. What took other nations years of debate, Korea could roll out in months because hesitation was treated like disobedience. South Korea's economic miracle wasn't born in conference rooms. It was drilled into existence with military precision. Most stories about South Korea's success stop in the 1980s and 90s with steel, ships, cars, and electronics. But if you stop there, you miss Korea's second leap. Forward, a leap not of factories, but of ideas. In the 21st century, Korea rose again, this time through culture. K-pop, K-dramas, and Korean films weren't just accidents of pop culture. They were the result of careful investment and national strategy. After the Asian financial crisis of 1997, Korea realized something crucial. If it relied only on heavy industries, it would always be vulnerable to global shocks. So it turned to culture as its next growth engine. Idol agencies ran like factories, training singers with the same discipline as engineers. Drama productions operated like assembly lines, designed for global audiences. Films were protected by quotas and nurtured by policy, giving directors room to experiment and compete with Hollywood. The result? South Korea built a second export industry, one of emotion and imagination. Today, Korea has something almost no other nation can claim. 2 engines driving it forward. On the hard side, semiconductors and smartphones. On the soft side, music, drama, and cinema. Think about it. Korea can design the chip inside your phone, and also create the song you're streaming on that same device. Japan has anime, but its semiconductor industry faded. Germany has engineering, but little cultural export. The U.S. has both Hollywood and Silicon Valley, but it's a superpower. Korea is just 50 million people, yet it runs both hard and soft power at a global scale. That combination, technology and culture, isn't just a business model. It's Korea's new miracle. South Korea's miracle wasn't built in a single generation. It was a relay of sacrifice, passed from parents to children, decade after decade. In the 1960s and 70s, the first generation worked in factories, often under brutal conditions. Their dream wasn't wealth. It was simply this: if I suffer, maybe my child can study. They lived in cramped housing, ate modest meals, but poured every spare one into education. By the 1980s and 90s, their children entered universities and landed jobs at Samsung, Hyundai, and LG. The family dream had shifted. An apartment in Seoul, a television, a refrigerator, a washing machine. And above all, stability. By the 2000s, a new generation stood on the world stage. Some became semiconductor engineers, others became global K-pop idols. The hard and soft engines of Korea's growth were both powered by the same fuel: family sacrifice. In Korea, the family is more than a household. It is a micro-nation. Parents act like the state, planning and sacrificing for the future. Children are like industries, pressured to compete and succeed. Yes, the pressure is enormous. Yes, the anxiety is real. But it was precisely this cycle of sacrifice that transformed Korea. From poverty into prosperity. The so-called miracle on the Han River wasn't built only with steel and factories. It was built with the quiet sacrifices of millions of families, each one carrying the nation forward, one generation at a time. Today, South Korea ranks among the world's top economies. Per capita income above $30,000. Samsung dominates semiconductors. Hyundai cars drive on every continent. K-pop fills stadiums from Los Angeles to Paris. And yet despite all this, Korea still lives with a deep sense of unease. Why? Because prosperity here has never felt permanent. It feels fragile, like glass. Geopolitics plays a role. To the north, an unpredictable North Korea. To the east, Japan. To the west, China. Behind it all, the heavy shadow of the United States. Economically, Korea is tied tightly to global supply chains. A disruption in chips, a shift in trade, and the entire nation feels the tremor. This reality has built a small nation psychology. Even when Korea succeeds, it acts as if success could vanish overnight. That's why sociologists describe Korea as living in a permanent crisis mode. Companies keep innovating, afraid of losing their edge. Students keep grinding, afraid of falling behind. Governments keep pushing, afraid of slowing down. Other nations, once wealthy, slip into comfort. Korea does not, because in the Korean collective mind, there is always a voice whispering, if we stop, we disappear. It's exhausting, but it is also powerful. This constant tension, this refusal to relax, has kept Korea sprinting long after others would have slowed. South Korea's story sounds like an economic miracle, but if you look closer, it's really a story about the power of fear. What pushed Korea forward wasn't resources. It wasn't capital. It wasn't even just smart policy. It was a mindset, a belief that if the nation stopped running, it might not exist tomorrow. Fear of being outcompeted drove industries to innovate. Military-style discipline turned plans into execution. Generational sacrifice turned families into engines of progress. And culture joined technology, giving Korea two engines instead of one. Yes, the cost has been heavy. Stress, inequality, burnout. Korea carries scars alongside its successes. But that's exactly why it matters. Its rise shows us that greatness doesn't come only from comfort or confidence. Sometimes, it comes from anxiety, from urgency, from the refusal to slow down. The so-called miracle on the Han River wasn't really a miracle. It was a relentless experiment, fueled by fear, discipline, and sacrifice. And that's the lesson. Fear can destroy, but fear can also create. It can paralyze a nation or it can push it to change history. So the next time you hold a Samsung phone, drive a Hyundai, or stream a K-pop song, remember, these aren't just products. They are the visible proof of a people who turned crisis into strength and fear into power. South Korea's story shows us one simple truth. Fear can destroy, but it can also create. If you enjoyed this different perspective on history and growth, don't go anywhere. This is just the beginning. In the next episodes, we'll explore the other Asian tigers, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore, each with their own struggles, their own sacrifices, and their own path to power. So, if you'd like to join me on this journey, hit the like button, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments below. The best stories are still ahead.